The Bear, created by Christopher Storer, is a show that I finally caved in on after avoiding for the longest time because I'm just not as big of a fan of food shows that are obsessed with like the likes of Come Dine With Me, Bake Off, or Gordon Ramsay. And having heard the description of the show, assumed it was just a gimmicky drama that had pulled in that kind of audience. But enough people I trusted persisted in recommending it, so eventually I caved in and binged season one recently, and immediately I was like, yeah, no, it is exactly as good as people say, and now I'm fully addicted to it. That left me caught up in time for season two, which landed all in one go on Disney Plus this week, and I inhaled it in just two sittings, one of which was actually totally unplanned, binging the last 7 episodes back to back on Friday night, because it was one of those shows where I actually couldn't stop every time it asked me did I want to watch the next episode, which probably also gives away how I felt about the series as a whole. Season two sees our beloved dysfunctional chef's return, this time tasked with not only sustaining the restaurant Carmy had inherited from his brother, who tragically killed himself, but now refurbishing and revamping it as a prestige venue, partnering with Sydney. This sees change for all involved, as Carmy must wrestle with whether he can allow himself to find happiness after bumping into an old friend, while still giving the restaurant the focus that he needs for it to succeed. Sydney tries to figure out if this is her thing or if it's just another thing that she's eventually going to fuck up. Richie needs to find purpose. Nat and Jimmy have to decide if they're all in on the restaurant or not. Tina, Ebra, and Marcus have to learn from scratch, and all of this has to come together on an unlikely timeline in the usual chaotic environment we're used to on the show. There's a huge phase shift from season one, where the tension of the show there was found within the cracks of the relationships of the characters, trying to pull it all together as a team while clearly all on different individual playbooks. The end of the series, of course, saw them eventually find a somewhat of a dysfunctional synergy and a kind of found family element. The challenge, I guess, then with series two is to balance keeping that synergy we want to see these people live within, because they're so well scripted and so genuine that they actually feel like our family now, and we want to see them all stay on the same page, while also delivering the chaos menu that we're all here for, that gives the show its unique vibe. How it does that in season two is by zooming in on each character to give them their own individual hill to climb, and it hits like the perfect donut. What I find most interesting, and this is very personal towards me, and I acknowledge that not everyone is going to feel this way, was that where the areas I related to most were with the older dogs struggling to learn new tricks. And props to Ebon Moss Bacharach, Lisa Conlon Zayas, and Edwin Lee Gibson playing Richie, Tina, and Ibra, who pull on my heartstrings at their will on their own individual journeys. While I feel a lot of younger people will find ways to connect with the equally impactful struggles of Jeremy Allen White, Ayo Edebiri, and Lionel Boyce as Carmy, Sydney, and Marcus, respectively. If you, like I was, are slightly skeptical towards this because essentially it's a show about working at a restaurant, then take it from a fellow former skeptic. It's not actually about the restaurant at all. The restaurant is essentially just the setting for everything and the way to orchestrate the drama that takes place. What makes this show work is that it's just a fucking incredibly made TV show where every single second counts. The soundtrack is still absolutely incredible, and I've spent the entire weekend singing REM to myself since finishing the show. Every scene and setting is lit differently to give it kind of a vibrant feel and tell you exactly how to feel coming into it. Even the camera work and framing, when it chooses to pull in right in someone's face or whether it chooses to pull back to take in all of the Chicago setting, is perfect, and each moment feels specially crafted and created with love, like the perfect omelette when you haven't eaten all day. You know a show is firing on all cylinders when they can just fly in absolute A-listers, like people that are now contracted to Marvel, like Will Poulter or Olivia Colman, just for a couple of scenes, just because they clearly have every major actor tapping their agent to get them involved somehow. Like, you know, when a show has Jon Bernthal on speed dial but doesn't actually need him most of the time, that it's in a really, really good space. And this all comes together in one of the best episodes of TV, not only this year, but probably in the last decade, with episode 6 of season 2, Fishes, which flashes back to a family Christmas and serves as somewhat of an origin story for many of our characters. I won't spoil anything here, particularly the amazing actors that they got in here. It is literally just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, every new character that shows up. It is absolutely phenomenal. But also, as well as getting those amazing actors, every single person person in this brings their A game in breathtaking scene after breathtaking scene that absolutely blows you away, while also fitting its purpose within the show and not just being a one-off kind of cool gimmicky bottle episode. It actually does set up and explain every single thing you've seen about the characters involved so far. What I love about this show most is the credibility. You'll hear everyone talk when they say credibility, what they kind of mean is you'll hear everyone talk about kind of the dialogue between the characters, how they kind of talk in a natural cadence. It doesn't feel like it's scripted for TV. It feels sometimes like you are just watching a kind of Gordon Ramsay documentary, and the camera just happens to be there and it's just normal people talking. But that isn't actually what I mean. It's also just how realistically the character choices play out, and they aren't just scripted for dramatic effect or for television. For example, you have Carmy's management decisions work perfectly when they should and create a completely toxic atmosphere at other times, depending on what impact the management decision would have in a working environment like this. But even the way Carmy's character as a whole, this is just to give one example of the great character work. Carmy, we kind of see here, and you can kind of get a sense of it from the get-go, especially if you've watched season 1, that he's essentially a traumatized inner child from a broken parentage who's become a caregiver, and that's why he's become this amazing chef, because he's had to become a caregiver type figure, and as such can't ever prioritize his own needs. And the great thing is that if you know that story, and if you know the levels that it takes to not only get to the realization of all of this, which Carmy is nowhere near, and that's not spoiling by the end of the season. I think it's pretty much a given if he's ever going to get there, because a lot of times people in this position, sometimes don't get there, you know what I mean? But also, even if he does get there, he's got a long road of healing ahead, which, as a viewer of the show, selfishly, as much as we don't want to see Carmy suffer, it means that the show has a long shelf life and there's still a lot of story to go, which is just music to our ears. The Bear is arguably the best TV show on the airwaves right now. In a period where we're losing heavy hitters, the likes of Succession, this will keep your faith that great game-changing TV is still being made. Don't be a fool like I was and wait any longer than you need to watch this. The hype is real, it's earned, and it's all on Disney Plus now.